I hear the scream before I see her. My heart thuds as I stumble through the dim corridor of women's maximum security prison. Smoke clouds from a broken lamp, the acrid smell of fear sticks to my throat. I clutch my ID badge and notebook, feeling the weight of my job and the secrets I was never supposed to uncover. They say walls have ears, but these walls keep more than ears. They keep lives, dreams, and screams locked inside. I've been here for a few years, trying to patch broken minds, hoping no one notices the cracks in the system. But today, everything I believed is about to shatter. It started with quiet rumors, whispers among the inmates. A girl, Chinelo, accused someone of something impossible. She was pregnant. No visitors. No contact. Just the cold, sterile isolation of women's maximum security prison. And then the others get pregnant. One by one, silent miracles no one could explain. And me, watching, powerless, while the prison itself seemed to breathe around me, hiding its truth beneath layers of stone, uniforms, and lies. Something monstrous is happening. And if I step too close, I might vanish too. And I stayed silent longer than I should have. Not because I didn't care, but because I was scared. Truly scared. I was afraid of losing my job. Afraid of being blamed. Afraid that no one would believe me. Afraid that speaking up might make me disappear, just like some of the women did. People say time heals everything. That's a lie we tell ourselves so we can sleep. Time doesn't heal, it buries. And buried things, they don't die. They wait. Tonight, the waiting is over. Tonight, I am finally ready to tell the truth, even if my voice still shakes. That night, after Ishala's failed escape, the block was quieter than usual. I could hear the soft creak of beds, the shallow breathing of women too scared to even cough. I moved from cell to cell, notebook in hand, trying to document what I had seen, what I suspected. Then I heard it, the whisper. "Are you really going to help us?" It was Kosarachi, sitting in the corner, head down. I nodded. "Yes. But you have to tell me everything." One by one, they spoke. Their voices low, trembling. Each confession is worse than the last. Contractors, officers, staff, all taking advantage, manipulating, threatening. Some of them were forced, some tricked, or trapped. Chinelo's voice trembled as she spoke. "I didn't want anyone to know. I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault." Ishola finally spoke again, tears running down her face. "I tried to fight, but I couldn't. They said if I screamed, I'd be blamed or punished." By the time the confessions ended, the room was heavy with grief. Not loud cries, but quiet endurance. The women weren't broken. They were surviving. And I realized, their stories were a map, a dangerous, horrifying map, of a system built to hide abuse. Survivors may appear silent, but their truth carries power. Have you ever ignored a quiet plea for help, only to regret it later? The next few nights, I worked in silence. Every shift, every corridor, every file became a thread I could pull to unravel the truth. I reviewed surveillance tapes, cross-checked schedules, and catalogued every whisper the women had shared. By the third night, I had a pattern clear enough to terrify me. Each assault aligned with specific staff movements. Certain contractors, certain officers, always when supervision was minimal. The same block, the same cells, the same times. I compiled lists of names, timestamps, and events. I even drew a crude diagram of the corridors, highlighting blind spots, doors, and camera angles. Chinelo and Ishola watched as I walked, their faces pale but determined. "We have to do something," Ishola said. "If no one else stops them, at least you can try." I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing me. This wasn't just about me anymore, It was about every woman in that prison. But with each discovery came a new fear. If Emmanuel or anyone else saw the evidence, everything, my job, the woman's safety, even my life, could be in danger. That night, I realized truth was not just power. It was a trap. Sometimes guarding the truth is as dangerous as the crime itself. Would you risk everything to prove what everyone else ignores? I walked into the warden's office that morning, hands shaking, notebook clutched tightly. My heart pounded like a drum. Today, I would show them the evidence. Warden, I need to speak about Block C, I began, voice unsteady. She looked up from her papers, eyebrows raised. Go on, she said, though the edge in her tone made me nervous. I laid out the schedules, the footage notes, the whispered confessions. Every detail. I saw her fingers tap the desk, her eyes scanning but not reacting. Then she leaned back, sighing. This is serious. But these are accusations. We can't act without proof. Proof? I asked, swallowing hard. The proof is right here. The women are afraid. The tapes show everything. She shook her head. We have procedures. You need formal statements. Reports. Legal clearances. Otherwise, we risk lawsuits, careers, even exposing the facility itself. I left her office crushed, knowing that time was running out. Each delay could cost another woman her safety, her dignity, or worse. In the corridor, a familiar shadow caught my eye. Emmanuel had been watching me leave. His thin smile was enough to make me shiver. He knew. That night, I realized that bureaucracy could be as deadly as the predator itself. Sometimes the system meant to protect becomes a shield for wrongdoing. Have you ever tried to fight injustice, only to find the rules protecting the very harm you oppose? I thought I could trust Officer Chinasa. She had always been stern but fair, a figure I respected in the prison hierarchy. That morning, I went to her office with the hope she would support me. I have evidence, I said, sliding the notebook across her desk. These women are being abused. It's happening right under our noses. Her expression didn't change. She leaned back, folding her arms. I see, she said. Then came the words that froze me. Should be careful. You don't know who's watching. Her tone wasn't a warning, it was a threat. I blinked. I thought you would help. She smiled faintly, coldly. Help? Sometimes helping isn't worth the risk for me. And you need to understand your place here. Stick to your duties, or you'll be next. I left the office, stomach turning. The walls that had once felt like protection now felt suffocating. Chinello's voice echoed in my head, don't trust the uniforms. That night, I realized betrayal didn't always come from predators outside the law. Sometimes it came from the very people you believed would protect you. Trust must be earned, not assumed, and betrayal can come from unexpected places. Have you ever discovered that someone you relied on was actually part of the danger? It was past midnight when I heard footsteps outside the back office, slow and deliberate. My heart froze. I knew that sound. Emmanuel. I grabbed the notebook, shoved it into my bag, and tried to steady my breathing. The door creaked. You've been busy, he said, voice calm but menacing. Looking into things you shouldn't. I swallowed, keeping my tone neutral. I'm just doing my job. Checking schedules, making reports. He chuckled softly, stepping closer. The shadows of the corridor fell across his face, twisting his smile. Your job? These women are criminals. You think anyone outside will care? Do you think anyone will believe you? I felt my stomach twist. His presence filled the room like a storm cloud. He leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. If you keep going, you might disappear. And no one will look for you. Not your family. Not the authorities. No one. I stared at him, frozen. Fear and anger collided. I realized that exposing the truth wasn't just about evidence, it was about surviving the predator himself. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept the notebook close, knowing every second could change everything. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. Would you stand up for others, even if your own life is at risk? The next morning, I gathered Chinelo, Ishola, and Aminatu in the corner of Block C. The sun barely touched the bars, and the air smelled of damp concrete and fear. We need a plan, I whispered, heart hammering. We can't let him keep doing this, but we have to be careful. One wrong move, and it could be worse for all of us. Chinelo nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks. I trust you, she said. But we need proof. Solid proof. Something they can't ignore. Ishola pulled out a tiny piece of torn notebook paper she had hidden under her mattress. I've been writing everything down, dates, names, times, she said. I felt a flicker of hope. It was small, fragile, but it was there. We spent hours mapping movements, memorizing routines, noting which cameras were live, which doors were unlocked, and when Emmanuel or the others came by. Every detail mattered. Every misstep could cost us everything. That night, as I lay in my cot, I realized this wasn't just about exposing abusers, it was about reclaiming control over our lives. We were planning a rebellion in silence, armed with nothing but courage and the truth. Even in captivity, strategy and courage can carve a path toward justice. Would you risk everything to fight for what is right? It was past midnight when we put our plan into motion. Every sound felt amplified, the hum of the generator, the distant clank of a gate, the rustle of our own clothes. My hands shook, clutching the notebook like a lifeline. Chinelo whispered, "Are you ready?" I nodded, though fear churned in my stomach. Ishola led the way, carefully slipping through the shadows, memorizing the blind spots we had noted. I followed, watching every movement, every light flicker. The corridors that once felt suffocating now felt like a maze we could control if we stayed silent and precise. We reached the small security office where I had hidden a backup of all the footage and notes. I plugged in the drive, copying files to a concealed USB. Suddenly, a footstep. Emmanuel. I froze. My pulse thundered in my ears. Chinelo grabbed my arm. We crouched, silent. The shadow passed the door, oblivious, and I exhaled slowly, heart pounding. By the time we returned to our cells, the files were secured. The first strike had been made. We had proof. That night, fear and hope battled in my chest. For the first time, I felt we could fight back. Courage begins with a single, deliberate act, even when fear is overwhelming. What first step could you take today to confront injustice in your life? I woke that night to a noise outside my cell, soft, deliberate tapping. My heart froze. It wasn't the usual shuffle of guards or the distant sounds of restless inmates. Emmanuel. I pressed myself against the cold wall, listening. Footsteps, then silence. Then a whisper, just loud enough for me to hear, "I know someone is watching. I know someone is plotting." My stomach churned. Every careful plan, every cautious step, suddenly felt fragile. He was onto us. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Chinelo or Ishola. We huddled in the shadows, whispering urgently. "We can't stop now," I said. "But we have to be smarter. He knows." We revised our route, memorized alternate blind spots, and set up signals. Every moment became a calculation, where to move, when to speak, how to stay invisible. That night, the prison felt alive, not with inmates, not with guards, but with danger itself. Every shadow, every corner could conceal him. As I lay back in my cot, wide-eyed, I realized something terrifying: courage alone would not save us. Intelligence, patience, and timing mattered more than ever. Awareness is as powerful as bravery. Courage without strategy can be fatal. Have you ever realized too late that someone you underestimated was watching your every move? The morning sunlight barely pierced the bars when I made my move. I walked into the warden's office with the USB drive clutched in my hand, my stomach tight with fear. "Warden, you need to see this," I said, my voice steady despite the shaking inside. She raised an eyebrow. "Go on," she said, motioning for me to sit. I handed over the drive and played the footage. Names, dates, schedules, whispered confessions, everything. Her eyes widened as the evidence unfolded on the screen. Then Emmanuel appeared at the door, calm as ever, but I could feel his presence like ice. "What's happening here?" he asked, pretending ignorance. I didn't flinch. "You know exactly what's happening," I said. "And now it's being documented. Everyone will know." The warden's face hardened. She reached for the phone. "Security, lock down the perimeter. Officer Emmanuel, you are suspended pending investigation." Emmanuel's thin smile vanished. I realized, in that moment, fear could no longer protect him. Courage, truth, and evidence had cornered him. Officer Emmanuel was arrested with others that are involved in the crime, prosecuted and jailed along with his cohorts. For the first time, the women of Block C could breathe a little easier. Their eyes, once hollow, now held sparks of hope. Truth, when backed by courage and preparation, can overcome even the most dangerous deception. When facing injustice, would you gather courage and evidence to confront it, no matter the risk? The prison felt different that morning. Sunlight poured through the bars, warm and real, not the harsh glare of fluorescent lights. For the first time in months, there was quiet, not the fearful silence of hiding, but a calm that spoke of small victories. Chinelo, Ishola, and Aminatu sat together, talking softly, their faces lighter than I had ever seen. They didn't need to speak loudly, the weight on their shoulders had lifted, even if only slightly. I walked through the corridors, noticing other women peeking from their cells, watching, whispering. Some nodded at me, hesitant gratitude, fragile hope. The walls had witnessed so much pain, but now they held proof, accountability, and a promise, things could change. The warden approached, firm but gentle. "You did well," she said. "It wasn't easy, but you gave these women a voice they were denied." I swallowed hard, realizing I had witnessed more than abuse. I had seen courage bloom in darkness. Justice didn't erase the scars, but it planted the first seeds of healing. Even in the darkest places, courage, solidarity, and truth can spark hope and begin the journey to healing. Have you ever been part of a change that gave someone their voice back, no matter how small it felt? The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Hit the notification bell to stay updated. And check out our playlist for more. Your support means everything to us.